So if you're thinking of planning to walk a Camino, or maybe you've walked a few in the past, I know we're filming this in October 2020. You're probably really disappointed that you haven't been able to get out on the Camino this year. But there's a lot of other people who are much more disappointed than you, and those are the people who live on the Camino and make their living on the Camino. So this week, we're going to be talking to an albergue owner on the Camino, Susi, coming right up. So, hi Susi, great to talk to you again. So, have you been open at all in 2020?
No, we haven't. At the beginning of March, we were actually in Australia visiting my family, which we do every year. I go back to being a florist because it subsidises us for winter when we are closed. And we came back as lockdown was happening. In fact, Spain had been locked down when I drove from the UK. So Fermin had come back, he flew back here, but our car was in the UK, so I had to drive back. So I was stopped at all the borders with proof that I actually lived in Spain with my residency card. So we got back to Trabadelo on the 20th of March, but by then Spain was actually in lockdown. And the government had kindly put a notice on our door to tell me I was closed. So it was in Spanish, English and French. And so not only was it telling me I was closed, it was telling any pilgrims that were also reading this to go home. Wow. So that's how the season began for us. We were, we'll wait this out, we'll see what happens. And of course, it didn't get any better in Spain and all the rest of the world. We were confined to our home. Lucky we had the garden to be able to go to, but we couldn't actually leave the village. So we couldn't walk through our village. If I had to go shopping, there were police patrols within this village as well. So I had to only go to the closest supermarket. So it was pretty tough, but we spent a lot of time in the garden. And then, of course, June came and they said, okay, things are going to start opening up soon. And there will be, we were asked to help with information on if we opened, what would we be able to put in place? The government were putting a list of restrictions up. What would we need to be open? And when we were listening to what the government was telling us that they wanted us to do, we realised that it was impossible for us to open. So we only have 12 beds and suddenly our capacity would be at 50%. So that would be 6 beds. Not only was it the 6 beds, but we couldn't do a communal meal. We could only have one person checking in at one time. We couldn't touch anybody. We couldn't hug anybody. We had to supply masks. We had to have screens. We had to have disinfectant mats at the door. We had to have pumps for hand sanitizers. By the time we'd invested in all of these things at 6 people, there was no point for us. There was going to be the minimum income we make was not even going to cut what we needed.
Of course, your albergues are Donativo, so
we really live, on a fine line anyway. But we'd also been trying to, survive for a few months with no income, and we start the season every year, with nothing, and then, as the time goes on, then there's enough for us to continue until the end of the season. We hadn't even got to that point. There had been some very kind donations. People had contacted us and asked if they could help us. A lot of people were thinking about the albergues along the Camino, and we are entirely and very grateful for all of those people that did think about us. It was really hard. And the other thing is that one of the things that Fermin had brought up is that we live in a very old community. So when we came back from overseas, we self-isolated for 2 weeks. We didn't go out. And when we did go out, which was only to walk in our garden, if we looked out of our door and we saw a villager walking into their garden, we didn't go out. We wouldn't take the chance that if we were sick, that we would give them anything. And we felt if we were bringing more people into our home within our village and something happened, we would feel to blame for it. So we decided that we wouldn't open. We wouldn't follow the rules that they were asking us to do or bring more people in. There are albergues in our village, so we have 6 in total, and 2, one at either end of the village, did open. They have had some days 1, some days 2, the odd day 12, and then days on end they've had 0 pilgrims stay there. But they've got to be open. They need to be ready for these people. I mean, they have private rooms, and I think that makes a big difference. We have one big room with our beds in. And so for us, we didn't open, and we're now just praying that next year it will be different. But it's been tough. And for me, as an English speaker who doesn't speak much Spanish, it's been a very lonely year. I have Fermin, and that's wonderful, but he can speak to other people. So if I've heard English accents, I've often opened the door or the window and gone, hello, hello down there, how are you? I need a friend, anybody to speak to me. So yes, I've been a desperate soul on the Camino this year, and I have met still some amazing people.
I can just picture you hanging out the window for, oh, won't hold you up, 20 minutes later. Oh, dear. So, I mean, it's very sad, but what's been the impact in the village? And you must know other albergue owners sort of up and downstream. I mean, what has been the impact? Have a lot of people just gone out of business and won't reopen?
Yes. So we're starting to notice either albergues, well, we've seen them up for rent if they were being rented before, or some have already gone up for sale. I suppose the difference for us that this is our home. We actually live here, and if and it has had to cross our mind. I've had some very confrontational conversations with Fermin saying, okay, what do we do? I mean, we've had no income, but what other job do we do? Because there's all these people that are now unemployed within our region, not our village, because there's nothing here. I mean, we do have a local supermarket, and she only survived on pilgrims, and she's not opened at all this year. And it's also her home. So, I mean, she's here because, like us, this is our home. But if we could have got a job somewhere else, we would have gone. But we haven't been able to do that, though we have tried. What happens next year? Who knows? So if we're seeing albergues for sale and we're seeing them for rent, we've still got another 7 months before next season. If it's possible to open, we don't know. And that's the fear. So yes, those bars and restaurants have closed down. Will they be opening? Yes, from the end of June up until this month, October, a lot of things opened. And that was basically that Spain said we need to open to the tourist season. But now things are closing down again. So Leon, as we know, is in lockdown. Navarra went from last night. So they've got a curfew, no one in or out of Navarra. So that includes Pamplona, Logroño. These places are now all closed again. So there were albergues that opened and then got closed down again. There were villages from Fria, for instance, which is beyond us. They opened when they could, which was, I think, the 1st of July. They opened up there. One day in August, there was a very small village. There was a case of COVID, and the police came through and the sanitisation cordoned off the whole village, shut it down for 2 weeks. So, these people were open and trading, and then suddenly you're closed. So, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. Well, I hope you and all the other albergue owners make it through to the next season okay, and that things open up.
Yeah, that's the only hope.
And if you don't mind, I will just mention, because this video goes up on Ivar's Camino forum, and he's done a wonderful job of posting up links for albergues who need help, not just on the Frances, but all the other Caminos, where people can help out. I'll put that link down below, because I think people who really are planning to get out there and walk their Caminos next year or whenever they can would certainly want to participate in helping keeping stuff open. So we'll do our bit to try and share the message.
Thanks, Rob. We do appreciate it.
Well, just thank you for joining us again, Susie. On a bit of a somber note on this one, but I know you'll make it through, and really look forward to coming to stay with you sometime in the near future. Maybe not this year, but hopefully it's going to be next year. And
We can't wait.
yeah, I'm sure you're going to have loads and loads of visitors as soon as we open up. So great talking to you once again, and best of luck in the coming months.